Welcome back, friends, to another weekly video. This week, I wanted to talk about some of the financial reasons behind the race riots that are happening in the United States right now. Because there is actually something very big going on in the financial markets that no one is talking about. And it has to do with demographics. There is a central concept in finance that is very important to understand. Every answer in finance depends on who is asking the question. The answers to questions change based on your specific set of circumstances. So for instance, what is the best capital structure? Well, that depends based on the company. Or what is the right proportion of stocks versus bonds? Well, that depends based on the investor. So almost every financial question is really about understanding a particular scenario and determining the optimal solution. The outcome can be different depending on the scenario. So when we look at a question like, what should the US do with its finances? The answer depends on what demographic group is asking the question. One of the biggest drivers in the financial world today is demographics. And I'm going to start by talking about different age groups because the finances of young people look very different from the finances of older generations. This chart illustrates the different major generations based on births per time period. And you can see the baby boomer generation has by far the largest number of births, which is the defining feature of this group. Births during Generation X drop down and then start to rise again in the millennials. Now these numbers are always changing as time goes by. And in 2019, for the first time ever, millennials became the largest generation according to the US Census Bureau. You can see in this projection into the future how the population of baby boomers decreases over time. Why is this so important right now? We are about to experience a huge spike of retirements of baby boomers in the United States. Here's a chart from the St. Louis Fed of retirements expected in the coming years. Specifically, this will happen with a big spike in the next 3 years and a continued high level of retirements over the next 10 years. This will have a huge impact on financial markets as people switch from wage earners to fixed income. This is a big demographic shift, and it is causing abnormal behavior in financial markets. So here's a chart of wealth distribution in the US by age demographics, and you can see that baby boomers hold well over 50% of the wealth in the United States. The older generations have all the money. The younger generations have very little, even though we saw that millennials now outnumber the baby boomers. Now this is quite unusual historically to have such a large discrepancy between the older and younger generations. Now it is normal for generations about to retire to have more money than the younger generations, but it's not normally this big. It's so large because there's going to be this huge spike of retirements to come, and the older generations are saving all of their money to survive retirement. This is one of the main drivers in the US economy right now, and it is why it is so difficult for young people. Young people are screwed in the US right now. They don't have any money. There isn't enough jobs. There's not a lot of growth. The jobs that do exist do not pay well enough. Young people don't have any money because the older generations have all of the money and they're planning on keeping it because they need it for retirement. Now, demographic problems are very challenging to solve because even if we started making babies right now, those kids wouldn't grow up for another 2 decades. And so we are stuck in our current situation. So what does all of this have to do with the race riots that are happening in the United States today? Well, this huge spike in retirements that is coming is impacting the entire financial system. And all of this money that is sitting in these retirement accounts came from earnings from past decades. Well, if you look at those past decades, those earnings came from economic opportunities that went primarily to white communities. And now all of that money is locked in the financial system, and there is no money left for anybody else. So people today in the United States are now feeling this. They feel the lack of financial opportunity. They feel the squeeze. They feel the lack of jobs. They feel the lack of growth. And they look around and they see a certain demographic of people who are sitting on all of the money. Now, all of these statistics about demographics are creating a war in this country over your money. And to just show you how this works, let me ask you a simple question. What is the optimal rate of inflation for the United States? As we discussed earlier, it depends on who you are asking. For young people with no money, inflation within reason is not such a bad thing. Inflation creates lower unemployment, more growth, more money in the system, and easier credit. If you ask the same question to the older generation with a lot of assets on a fixed income, they want zero inflation. They want to maintain the value of their assets. So we currently have these two opposing viewpoints in an abnormal environment with a huge discrepancy between these two groups of people. Now, there was a research paper released by the Federal Reserve in 2012 looking at this exact question. Looking at different demographics historically, younger people preferred higher inflation, while older people preferred lower inflation. So what does all of this mean for financial markets? Well, looking at the years to come, all of these retirements with longer life expectancies is going to drive deflationary pressures. So we can try to create inflation as much as we can, but we're going to be facing deflationary pressures for the next 10 years. This is going to frustrate younger generations more and more and more. And you're going to see this conflict play out in politics, because that is where we set social policies. That's where we influence the financial policies of the nation. And we have already seen this start to play out. In the 2018 US elections, we saw the younger generations surpass the older generations in voting for the first time ever. And this happened in an enormous jump. This excitement to vote in young people is being driven by the lack of economic opportunities. And as of 2 years ago, young people control the vote in this country, which is a trend that is likely to continue into the future. I want to end here with the one lesson that we always learn from economics. Economics teaches us that financial markets correct over time. So we may be in an abnormal demographic situation right now, but it will eventually resolve itself. In the meantime, this will likely be one of the primary conflicts that is driving financial markets over the next 10 years. I hope you found this video informational and helped you understand what is going on in the financial markets today. I'm Zach from Wolves in Finance. Thank you so much for watching. Let's go out and make some money.